Well, you've brought some great bumps back, Doug. I appreciate it. Sean, how is Matt Thomas a bigger Raptors legend now than Vince Carter? Where does he rank in the pantheon in Toronto history?
It depends. There were a few local writers who really adopted Matt Thomas as their guiding light last year. That really fizzled out quite quickly. I do an annual ranking every year of every Raptor. It's a stupid, very time-consuming exercise
Which
that
we love,
I put
which we absolutely
far too
love
much
here.
effort into. But yeah, I think Matt Thomas fell somewhere in the deep 180s or something like that. Vince Carter a little bit higher than that.
Okay.
So yeah, do you remember top three?
Of course I remember the top three. What are we talking
hit me,
about?
hit me.
Kyle
Number
Lowry is number one.
Wait,
It's
hold
not
on. No,
even close.
hold on. No, let's do. Now we've
Okay.
just forget you heard that.
Bring
Let's
the
start.
fanfare, Doug.
Do you remember number? Yeah, I've got the fanfare. We can do this slowly. We can take our time. No, our bosses will get mad at us for taking our time, but we'll do it. Let's go. Number 5, fifth best Raptor of all time.
I think fifth best I have as Chris Bosh, although I'm ruminating on this year Pascal Siakam finally overtaking him.
Wow. Okay, Chris Bosh number 5, and then Pascal possibly going to pass him. That's pretty interesting.
Pascal.
It is Pascal, right? Is it Pascal or Pascal?
No, I'm just saying
Pascal,
pass.
yeah,
I'm doing a thing with pass. Come on, Walker, keep it.
I don't know.
I've been trying, Doug. I'm glad you brought that up. I've been trying to figure out a way to do some sort of Pascal pun because of all the passes he's been throwing lately, as a new fully revamped playmaker.
Make a pass calculator. Make a pass calculator.
That could work, but I'm having trouble. Maybe I'll steal that because I'm having a really hard time finding something that isn't just pass with 2 S's, Cal Siakam, and it's not a very good pun. Let me tell you, it's not my best work.
All right, that's fine. We love the puns here.
High in pass calories.
Let's keep moving with the fanfare. Who's number 4 on your list, Sean?
I think 4 I have DeMar, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, DeMar I think comes in number 4. He's very good. We love DeMar up here.
Yeah, and
working his way up the Bulls rankings now.
Certainly doing that with the Bulls as well. All right, who comes in at number 3?
Vince Carter, of course.
I didn't know. All right, so Vince Carter does come in at number 3, and we already know number 1, but we're going to act like we didn't hear that, so I'm really interested to see who's going to be number 2. Drop it on us, Sean.
It's Terrence Ross. No, it's Kawhi Leonard. I think people are kind of yeah, they take issue with me putting him number 2, but I don't know. Did you watch him for the one season where he literally won a championship? Not on his own or anything like that, but kind of on his own in a lot of ways. Game 7 against the Sixers, he shoots 40 times, hits the shot. They don't win the title without him. So yeah,
well, that's number 2. That's like Jamal Mashburn. People get mad at Walker and I for putting Jamal Mashburn high on the top 30 Hornets of all time because he was, and Eddie Jones. People loved Eddie Jones several years. Didn't get the Hornets to a championship, but
no, that's right. You said Kawhi Leonard. That's just like Jamal Mashburn. Those are words that you said on this podcast. All right, number 1.
And I
who do you
stand
have?
by it,
Sean. We have no clue who's number 1 on your list.
Is Kyle Lowry. Have you ever heard of him?
Yes.
Yes, he destroys. He was the destroyer of Charlotte.
He was. He was the destroyer of Charlotte. Kyle Lowry.
With that big booty.
Yeah, he does.
I mean, he destroyed a lot of people with his booty. He continues to destroy people with his booty. Even though heat culture is trying to, I'm sure, shame him into slimming down his booty, it's impossible. You can't.
That's like cutting off Samson's hair.
Yeah.
Samson? That's right.
Yeah, you can't do that. I hope that they're not doing
Samson
that.
Who?
Down with heat culture. All right, let's talk about the Raptors that are currently on this team as we speak right now. As I mentioned, Sean, I mean, you guys that you go after a lot of defenders. Pascal Siakam still on the team, and then the first big-time surprise of the NBA draft was watching Toronto draft Scottie Barnes, who everybody loved and everybody had him higher than everybody else except for Toronto, apparently, right? Toronto, they selected Scottie Barnes over who everybody thought was going to be taken there at Jalen Suggs. What have you thought of Scottie Barnes so far this year?
He's pretty awesome, man. He already fulfills my quotient for whether I think a player is good, which is he throws at least one no-look pass per game, which is really all I need from my basketball watching experience. In addition to that, he just is a way more advanced scorer than I think anyone ever projected him to be. He was branded by a lot of very smart draft people as a 0-level scorer coming out of the draft. And he's currently shooting 64% inside 3 feet. He's got a mid-range game. He's like kind of flirted with reasonable, average on kind of reasonable volume on threes as well. Like he's been just bloody impressive as an offensive player to the point that like even though he's had some defensive misgivings, which I think you expect from any rookie, like he gets blown by a lot, he'll kind of break down in coverage. And I know for sure that like when there's a blown coverage, it's not Pascal Siakam or Fred VanVleet usually to blame. It's usually going to be Scottie Barnes because of how good those guys typically are. But even then, his offense has just been so impressive. I mean, he put up 27 points on Friday against the Wizards, basically just posting up dudes all night long. And then he can have a game where he's playing point guard for the team and he's finding guys on the run. And he's a really, really delightful basketball player to watch. And I think, kind of on the tier of LaMelo when it comes to funky, cool basketball players, he's just a blast. And he's been well ahead of schedule. And so, like, for me, my whole experience of the Raptors this season is it's all just gravy because Scottie Barnes is what matters the most. And he has been so good that, the results of this season doesn't really matter because he is way ahead of where anyone thought he would be.
Yeah, it sounds like he's profiling similar to LaMelo Ball out of the draft. Now, I don't think people thought that LaMelo Ball was a zero-level scorer coming into that draft, but they certainly had questions about his outside shot and about his offensive production in general, and he well exceeded those expectations in his rookie season. We did mention in the last segment he is struggling to shoot the basketball right now, and so are the Hornets in general. They started that last game against the Atlanta Hawks 0 of 19 from the field, so they've got some, as they improve their defense, they've got some offensive shooting struggles to figure out. Here's my question on the Raptors. Right now they're sitting at 500. Are they beating your expectations for this season, or are they somewhat behind your expectations? How do you feel about this Raptors team right now?
I mean, they're basically in line with what I expected. I predicted 42-40 at the start of the season, and they were 21-20 at the halfway mark. So listen to my podcast. I'm a genius. But I think for me, it has been, I think, even a better sort of season than I expected it would be, and it's been a more fun season to watch. It's a super weird and interesting team, which is kind of part of it. It's like way different than any team I've ever covered. They don't care about positions. They'll play lineups with 5, 6, 9 dudes where Chris Boucher's like the shooting guard, I guess. Like it gets super weird super quick with this team. There have been some annoyances. Nick Nurse has played like 7 guys a night for the last couple weeks here. Like it's the playoffs and everyone's exhausted, and Fred VanVleet shooting poorly lately because I think he's just so damn tired from doing everything all the time. But it's been a really enjoyable year because you've seen just kind of like a bounce back from last year in Tampa from a lot of guys who you really wanted to see bounce backs from. I mean, in particular, Pascal Siakam, who was better than people give him credit for last year, but still kind of had this sort of stink on him from the bubble. This season, it's been entirely different. He's become like the best playmaker on the team. He's throwing out like 10 assist games left, right, and center. He's been really, really exciting while also getting back to his sort of peak defensive level as well. And it's just been great. And along with Scottie Barnes, Gary Trent Jr. has been a lot better than expected. I think the guys that really matter have been better than I expected. Fred VanVleet as well. I mean, he's going to be like a shoe-in all-star, maybe an all-NBA guy this year. He's been that good. Never would have foreseen that. And so even though the back end of the roster is kind of dragging things down and they're really struggling to string together wins because of that, the guys who matter have been better than I think anyone could have anticipated. So for me, they're in the green on this season for sure. And I think you look towards next season and things get a little bit more exciting in terms of kind of ceiling type things.
And Walker, I don't know how you feel right now, but this game scares me a little bit for the Hornets because not because of the last blowout to the Atlanta Hawks. I think those shooting struggles are going to come back towards the mean, but I think defensively they're going to have they've had struggles this season with dealing with teams who put a lot of tall, long, lengthy players on the floor, athleticism, that kind of thing. So I don't know where your head's at on this game, Walker, but I'm a little scared.
Well, I mean, height and versatility is always going to be a problem, especially for the Hornets, who they're just not very tall, right? Like we like to go small ball constantly with PJ Washington playing center as our best lineup. And you guys mentioned LaMelo Ball, Scottie Barnes, the profiles being very similar coming into their first year in the NBA. I actually viewed the Toronto Raptors very similarly altogether as the Charlotte Hornets. And Sean, I think we did a preview on one of the Locked On NBA previews that we did this year. We were on the same episode because we were kind of in the same tier. And both of us, I think, went with internal improvement, if I'm not mistaken, having such a big factor on how this team was going to play. Well, here the Hornets are. Miles Bridges is at least top 10 in the votes when it comes to Eastern Conference front court players. You talk about LaMelo Ball, who, even with the down shooting, has taken a step up this season. Guys like McDaniels, Cody Martin, really impressive. Terry Rozier has still stayed the same. We've seen a lot of improvement. I feel like that's kind of happened with Toronto, where you see Fred VanVleet, you just mentioned. You see Pascal Siakam coming back after having a disappointing year last year by expectation. Scottie comes in really good, going to be at least top 3 rookie of the year, probably behind only Evan Mobley at this point. So, it seems like there are a lot of similarities more so between these two teams than the Hornets have with any other franchise.
The biggest similarity is that both teams are trying to copy the Miami Heat. We're just both desperately trying to figure out how that team succeeds and copy it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think I mentioned to Doug yesterday, I kind of see a lot of through lines. Also, just the team building that's kind of being done here, where there's a lot of sort of spreading of the wealth when it comes to, the top 5 or 6 guys in the team. They're all kind of putting up good numbers and they all kind of work well together. The fit's pretty nice, but maybe there's just that one missing ingredient. Neither team has a center either, which I guess is a very easy comparison. Yeah. Both pretty bad on the defensive glass, things like that. Yeah, it's pretty interesting the way they've gone about it. I think the Hornets obviously are a little bit less sort of eyeing up this vision 6'9" as we've dubbed it up in Toronto. They're not quite going for that formula. And why would you? You got LaMelo, you've got Gordon Hayward, you've got a lot of interesting guys who just happen to be not 6'9". Why would you go and sell out your sort of guys that you have on hand to chase a different vision? But I think just in terms of trajectory, where these teams are in their sort of building towards their next competitive windows, I think they're pretty similar. I do have a question for you guys about this one. Doug, you mentioned to me that zone is kind of a heavy thing that the Hornets will use. As it turns out, the Raptors have gotten crushed by zones lately. The Wizards used it against them in their Friday game. The Raptors scored 18 points, almost blew a 14-point fourth quarter lead in that game. And then on Sunday against the Blazers, they were down 30 at halftime after they got zoned into oblivion by the Blazers and they just couldn't knock down a 3. This is an interesting matchup from that perspective too, because the Hornets are horrible on the defensive glass and the Raptors are the best team in the league on the offensive glass. So that's kind of an interesting inflection point, especially with how we know zones can affect defensive rebounding with the way guys are positioned and all that. How do you view the zone being a weapon or potentially the undoing because of the defensive glass in this one for the Hornets against the Raptors?
Yeah, I think they do the best they can on the defensive glass, but I think their focus is on, trying. They don't really need the defensive glass to push the pace. They can push the pace on missed shots. They can push the pace on made shots, and they really are aggressive in terms of trying to steal the basketball and generate extra possessions that way. And you have LaMelo, who is an assassin when it comes to steals because he just has this otherworldly anticipation of where the ball is going to go. He knows where it's going to go before the person who's passing it knows where it's going to go. And so they try to generate more offense with their defense than and to make up for the fact that they're going to struggle defensive rebounding. Also, LaMelo and other players, they love to crash the glass and generate extra possessions that way. So, I think they try the best they can to cancel out some of their structural defects when it comes to that. I would just love to know, I think what would be fun for these crossover segments is just to exchange how we can beat each other's team. How are the Hornets going to lose this game? How are the Raptors going to lose this game? Nobody knows more intimately how a team is going to lose than the people that watch the team the most. So if Toronto loses this game, Sean, what happens? What happened to Toronto that they lost this game?
Yeah, I mean, I figured the Hornets probably zone up pretty hard and force them into taking a lot of threes, and their consistent struggles from downtown continue. OG Anunoby is one of their 3 knockdown guys they have. He's been kind of cold lately. Fred VanVleet's been kind of cold lately as well. Gary Trent Jr. is really the only guy right now and he's only been back from injury for a couple of games here too, but he's the only guy I really trust and feel yes, that catch and shoot is definitely going in. Fred normally has that. It's just been a bit of a rough go for him in the last couple of games here. He still finds a way, and he also is a steals hawk too. So it's kind of like Spider-Man meme teams kind of once again pointing at one another. But yeah, I think they get flummoxed by the zone and they just miss a ton of shots, and their missed threes don't lead to short rebounds that they can collect and finish around the basket with. They lead to long rebounds, they lead to runouts for the Hornets in their transition game, which is a problem. And that was the problem against the Blazers on Sunday. So I do think there's already kind of a blueprint to really flummox the Raptors. And, if that happens, the Hornets will go up big in the first half. The Raptors will then have what we call a very friendly, or I guess colloquially, and with some sort of endearment, fake comeback. The Raptors are very good at them. They will sort of full court press you to oblivion in the second half, get it close. They got it to within 4 points against the Blazers in that game where they were down by 30 at halftime, and they couldn't quite put it over the finish line because they ran out of gas. That feels like the sort of blueprint for a Raptors loss here, I think. What about you with the Hornets?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at when you talk about the full court press, like the Hornets are pretty equipped to handle that. Certainly with LaMelo, you do have some ball handlers that you can be okay with. So that would be an advantage for the Charlotte Hornets. I just think you guys are really good defensively when you go to Fred VanVleet, going to be right up in LaMelo, shorter than LaMelo, a taller point guard, so that's going to be tough for him. Then you talk about Scottie Barnes, you talk about Pascal Siakam. Can you neutralize the offensive threats of the Hornets all the way down the list? Miles Bridges, you take him away. Gordon Hayward, you take him away. Terry Rozier is going to have to put up a heroic effort, which he was crazy cold this last time out, but overall has been shooting very well the last couple of months or so. Is it going to take some kind of heroic Terry Rozier game while LaMelo continues to struggle from the field? Miles up and down, certainly with his shooting, actually more so down this year. I think just defensively, if the Hornets, it's one of those classic, can the Hornets get to 110? And if they do, you feel pretty good about it, considering the Raptors haven't gotten to that mark, I think, in the last couple of weeks or so. So it's just, you guys are really good defensively. You're so versatile from top to bottom. And the Hornets have a lot of guys that can score, but you're going to take a lot of that away with how good they are. So I think that's going to be the problem. It's, can the Hornets find transition buckets? Can they try to get the easy baskets as much as possible? And if they can, then the Hornets might come away with a victory.
And I think to that point as well, like the way the Raptors decide to defend the Hornets will, I think, go a long way to deciding what happens here too, because they do a thing where they will send a lot of extra attention towards the best player on an opposing team and just hope that the guy who gets the corner three in the corner after a swing is going to miss it. It's been their strategy for a couple of years. It's not worked so well this year. And with the Hornets, like, there's a lot of threats out there. Yeah. I'm not super comfortable funneling those shots to. So do they play a more switch heavy scheme, which they have the capability to do? They just never do it. And it's very maddening because, like, they've built this team of 6'9" dudes who could easily defend everybody one-on-one, but instead they scramble and recover and fly around like maniacs. And I think against the Hornets, that could be a particularly dangerous strategy.
Well, and what's interesting too, you mentioned the corner three. Kelly Oubre, what was funny is how, he was historically bad with the Golden State shooting last year. But if you were to dive a little deeper on his corner threes, they weren't bad with Golden State. It was just everywhere else was so bad. And so now you see what Kelly's doing here, having a breakout season, being at least second in Sixth Man of the Year voting behind Tyler Hero right now. And so if Kelly can be that guy that, has the dagger for you every once in a while, then yeah, that would be great. Kelly, is he making shots, and can he make shots against Toronto? If not, he's probably not helping you. But that's something that would serve better for the Hornets if the Toronto Raptors do find themselves scrambling on team defense.
I know that not a lot of people are allowed in Scotiabank Arena right
now.
None
people are allowed, except for family and friends. Yeah.
All right. Well, if you can befriend one of the Raptors and sneak your way in there, I just want you to dap up the Raptor. Does the Raptor have a name? We were discussing it. We weren't sure if the Raptor mascot has a name.
Yeah, it's just the Raptor. Why overcomplicate things? It's just the Raptor, and it's it's been the same guy since 1995. He's been
It's Terry Raptor inside the Raptor.
Sure, yes. He's been doing some of his best work during this fanless experience.
I know. I wanted you,
bothering Devin Booker.
Yeah, dap him up for me.
Raptors skulking around. We're not allowed to interact with the Raptor. It's there's a cone of protection around the Raptor. It's a very intense and kind of cultish thing. But I'm happily part of that cult.
Seems like a pretty good idea.
Just sneak in there and give him a little tail dap for us, because I'm not a huge fan of Devin Booker, so I really enjoy that.
There you go. So the Raptor and Doug Branson, two peas.
Little tail dap. Just give him one of these. Boop.
There you go.
Yep,
Exactly.
I will do and say that's from Doug Branson, and then
he won't.
Terry
Raptor
forever.
won't. He won't feel it. You know, they can't feel the end of the tail.
Just make sure you do the sound effect with it as well, so he knows what you did. All right, Sean Woodley, Locked On Raptors, joining us on the Locked On Hornets podcast. Make sure you follow him on Twitter for great Raptors coverage.
What's he got?
Woodley,
What you got? You got some.
Yeah,
you
I
got
got a
some
thing I got to show
us?
you guys. By the way, I
Please
told
do.
Doug a couple
Show and
days
tell.
ago. But for plugging things or whatever, I just wanted to plug. This is a thing I own. It is
Oh, that's fantastic.
Very large sweater. I bought at a vintage market one day.
Yeah, let's see that. Let's see that again in full screen
mode.
mode.
Sure. Okay, here we go.
Yeah,
Beautiful. It's a little toasty. I don't wear it often.
That's old school for the podcast listeners. It's an old school sweater. Is it a sweater or jacket?
The Game. I don't know what company that is, if they're still in business or not. But if there's a Hornets fan out there who wants to send me a bunch of money for this, I could be convinced to send it.
If you're listening right now, go to YouTube.
Right.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Even if you're not a Raptors fan, just subscribe to Sean's. We just love subscribers. You don't have to watch. Just subscribe.
No,
that's all right.
Just like to juice the stats, baby.
Yeah, that's right. Is it embarrassing, by the way, that the Locked On Raptors host has a better Charlotte sweatshirt than I do, considering I'm wearing the Bobcats one?
That is.
I mean, that's really embarrassing. Because it's not even close. Sean clearly has a better sweatshirt about Charlotte. All right, follow him on Twitter at Woodley Sean. Thanks so much, man. Great hearing from you. We appreciate you hopping on with us.
Anytime, guys.